Okay, hello again, friends. This is Ron and Justin with Mobile Fix Automotive, and we're going to basically show you a little, I call it a tutorial because we're not actually going to be doing a repair. This is a 2010 Ford F-150. It's got a 5.4 liter 3-valve Triton in it. Actually belongs to a friend of mine, and I talked to him on the phone over the last week, and I think they tried to figure some stuff out on it first. And generally, when the 3-valve Triton comes into my shop and it's got certain types of misfires, it usually doesn't end well for the checkbook of the customer, because these engines are notorious for cam phaser failures. For me, I've seen multiples where the timing chain has jumped time because of oil pressure issues with the timing guides. And so I told them if they've already done all the basics to it, it's probably internal and it was going to be expensive to fix, but I needed to troubleshoot it. So now here we are. And fortunately for him, and he doesn't even know yet because I'm shooting the video before I even notify him, this problem is actually stupidly simple to fix, but it required a scan tool with PID graphing data to figure it out. He did have a code in his system, the 0012 and the 0011 code for cams being over retarded. So far, that particular system is operating normal, and during the test drive, the engine actually had plenty of power. More of the misfires were at idle and low speed, and this is where the Ford Triton motor is kind of unique on its own. Everybody knows that watches my videos, I do a lot of Triton work. This is the first 3-valve Triton video that I've shot, and the reason for it is most of the 3-valve Triton repairs are so complicated it would literally be a 10-hour video, which I just don't have the resources to do. This one is the second time I've seen this particular problem, and because of the misfires on these engines, what it was doing is when it misfires, it feels like it's actually half the engine misfires. So instead of it feeling like it's on 7 cylinders, it actually felt like it was running on 5 or 4. I mean, it was shaking that bad. And it was intermittent, it would come and go. And so where we're at with it is I started running diagnostics. I ran cam phaser tests. I ran all the actuator tests for the VVT, and everything was normal, even though the codes were in the system, but the engine was shaking really bad at idle and off idle, and a little bit of twitching when it was on the road. So what I did was I put the scanner on it, went into graphic mode, and started looking at the misfires. Instead of looking at the counts, I started looking at the actual graph to watch the graph move. Unfortunately, I've already changed the spark plug on this engine, and so the misfire is now gone. But I will start the engine and show you what the graphing mode looks like for those of you that have scanners that can do it. But this is the second time in 60 days that I've had a 3-valve Triton in my shop with a misfire that felt this bad, that ended up being something as stupid as a spark plug. One single spark plug that went bad, not a coil pack. Because the first thing I do when I get a misfire on a Triton, especially if it's easy to get to, like this one, there were no codes showing an engine misfire on cylinder number 8. However, when you went into the data and you looked at the graphing mode, you could see that there was 29 misfires per cycle, only on cylinder number 8. What that tells me basically is that it's probably not a camshaft timing issue, because if it was a timing issue, you should see the misfires on all 4 cylinders on that bank. Not just number 8. It wouldn't make sense for just one cylinder to have the valves out of time and the other 3 to be in time, so if that makes sense to you. So the first thing I did was I took the coil pack off of number 8 and I swapped it with number 7, which is the cylinder right in front of it. If it was a bad coil pack, the misfire should have switched to cylinder number 7 on the scan tool. Not only did it not switch to cylinder number 7, it was still showing misfires on cylinder number 8. So the next step that I did was to pull the coil pack back off of number 8 and pull the spark plug out of it. And one of the things that I found, if you want, my lovely assistant Justin wants to zoom in here. I don't know how well you can get this for him.
you folks see this black stripe that's on the side of this spark plug? You can see that pretty good? All right. So there's one, and then there's two. So there's one on each side of the plug. This is actually a crack in the porcelain. You can feel it. And what I believe it's doing is when the coil shoots the spark into the tip of the plug right here, it should shoot through and come out on the electrode down here. And this is where the spark should take place. That's what ignites the fuel and forces the piston back down. In this particular case, I think what happens is, I think the spark is shooting through here and it's coming out here and it's landing here, or it's landing on the inside of the cylinder, and because the spark will always take the path of least resistance. So it's the same thing with lightning. The tallest tree is usually the one that gets hit because it's closer to the sky. So it's similar to that type of deal. Well, electricity flows the same way in vehicles. The spark will always take the path of least resistance. So if you have anything in your secondary ignition system, which is basically after the coil, then it's going to take the shortest path it can. So what's unique about this that I decided to want to shoot this video on is this is the second 3-valve Triton in 60 days, like I said before, that have had bad spark plugs, and what's unique is they've both been on cylinder number 8. So I'm just one mechanic in the corner of my little world, and I have X amount of customers and YouTube guys that bring in vehicles for me to work on, but to see 2 of these in 60 days, I think there's more of these running around. This has nothing to do with this particular truck, but for those of you that don't know, that when they redesigned the 2-valve Triton and they made it a 3-valve, they actually redesigned the entire engine. And one of the things that they changed was the first generation 3-valve had this style spark plug in it. And for those of you that are mechanically inclined, it looks more like a glow plug than it does a spark plug, just because they enclosed the gap at the end for the electrode, where this is the newer style is more like the original spark plugs, where the electrode's just a single bend, where this one's actually more like a cavity with the spark plug in the center of it. So I don't know what year they did the switch over, but at some point these were the spark plugs that if you tried to take them out and you didn't know what you were doing or you hadn't paid attention, they break off, the threads come out and leaves the spark plug inside the cylinder head, and life's basically miserable at that point, and you have to have special tools to go in and pull this out. Well, I wasn't even aware until a little while ago that Ford fixed this problem on the 3-valve by coming out with this spark plug. This spark plug is not multiple pieces in certain respects. The bottom half of it is all one piece. So when you go to unscrew this spark plug, it pulls the threads with it and the spark plug all together, where this one, it's actually multiple pieces, and when you unscrew it, if this sticks in the head, that comes off and you end up with the porcelain in the bottom of the plug stuck in your cylinder head. So that's really neither here nor there, but it shows you the different spark plugs that are in a 3-valve. Like I said, this is a 2010. So I'm going to have Justin pause the video for a second, and I'm going to start the engine, and I'm just going to show you the graph on what I look for with a misfire. It's not going to show you a misfire because I fixed the problem, but at least you'll see what I'm looking for and how I was able to locate this without having the customer spend a whole lot of money. Okay, so we're off our pause right now, and come on in here, folks, and look at this, guys and girls. Okay, so this is a PID list, and this basically, if you look, it shows cylinder number 1 average misfires, and then cylinder number 1 misfires current drive cycle. So that shows you, what's active now and what was supposedly stored in the system. And that's cylinder 1. There were no misfires on anything but number 8, so I'm going to go down here to number 8. Number 7, there's number 8. So we're going to have this. Now where I went in to look, even though there were numbers showing on the side, is I can hit this button right here on my scanner and go down to 4 graphs, and I can look at this. And this right here, this red line, when it's misfiring, even though it doesn't always show up on these numbers, the graph will change. It'll kind of do an oscillation and let you know that there's a misfire there. So after I changed this spark plug on number 8 and number 8 only, the misfires are completely gone. Now the engine's completely smooth. So we're up and running. All we have to do now is final test drive and call a customer and tell them that his pocketbook's not going to be emptied on this one. And we're going to go from there. So I know this was about a 10-minute video. My scanner just tried to jump off the truck. So I know this was a 10-minute video, but I'm trying to give you guys some information. Hopefully if you guys have a misfire in one of these, might not be a bad idea if you've done coil pack swaps. I know people don't like me calling them a pack because it's not multiples together, but if you're doing coil swaps and replacements, that's fine. That's one of the process of eliminations that we use in the shop, but I would recommend going ahead and putting spark plugs in these if you're getting misfires, even if they're not showing up under check engine light code, like anything in the P0300, because the P0300 is random cylinder misfire, 301 is cylinder 1, 308 is cylinder 8. That's how that works. This truck had no check engine light at all for a misfire. The only check engine light it had was for the VVT system, and I personally think that the only reason that was coming on was because this misfire was making the computer adjust the cams for the misfire. So I'll figure that out after I do this. But anyway, we'll see you on the next video, and hopefully this helps somebody that's got a misfire and you guys are pulling your hair out.